Assalamu alaikum and good day everyone. I am Mohana S. Ibrahim and together with my group mates, we are going to discuss the subject and content of art. In the Philippines, which is predominantly a non-museum going public, looking at art has always been a tricky business. This is true not only for novices but also at times confronts the long-time art aficionados. One of the major outlets that spoils an individual's engagement with an artwork is the notion that in order to appreciate it, one must be able to extract a specific image, isolate the artist or maker's intention, and unearth a particular meaning. Failure to do so automatically implies a failure of comprehension and therefore failure of the experience. So, sa Pilipinas daw, hindi tayo sanay na tumingin sa mga art. Kaya kapag nakakakita tayo ng art, is nahihirapan tayo na intindihin agad yon. Minsan naiisipan natin na hindi tayo matalino or kapag hindi agad natin naintindihan ng art, naiisip natin na hindi tayo matalino, wala tayong kakayahan sa art at wala tayong karapatan na magbigay ng opinion, which is mali. Ang pinaka malaking hadlang daw sa pag-appreciate ng art ay ang paniniwala na in order to appreciate an art, kailangan daw makita natin agad ang exact image or message ng art, or malaman agad natin ang intention ng artist, or mahanap agad natin ang tamang isang sagot ng art, which is hindi dapat ganon. Kasi sa ganyang mindset is parang sinasabi na ang pag-appreciate ng art is para lang sa mga tao na may mga expert or may education or training educations about sa pagbasa at paggawa ng art. So parang sinasabi na walang kakayahan or walang karapatang magbigay ng opinion ang mga ordinaryong tao. Pero hindi dapat ganon kasi ang art daw is para yan sa lahat. Lahat ng tao is pwedeng makapagbigay ng opinion kasi magkakaiba tayo ng pananaw sa mga bagay-bagay. The primary stage of engaging with art is its perception. The eyes plays a big role in mechanically making a vision possible. However, like any tool, it is but one component. What makes the difference is the awareness in the process of looking, where subjectivity is essential in navigating through the artwork. Meaning, unang steps daw sa pag-unawa natin ng art is the perception. Kailangan po natin ng ating vision or ang mata para makita natin or maunawaan natin ang isang artwork. So, kasi merong mga artwork na in order for us to understand it, kailangan talaga natin ng ating eyes. Unlike sa mga ibang artwork na kahit tenga lang yung gamitin natin is maintindihan pa rin natin like mga music. Pero dito, when we say visual arts, is kailangan po talaga natin ng ating mata. So, ang pagtingin daw po sa art is parang pagtanggap lang natin ng mga information parang normal lang siya na pagtanggap ng information. So, di ba kapag nakakita tayo ng art, syempre, may makikita natin din doon yung mga details na pwedeng makatulong sa atin na makakuha ng information and for us to makapagbigay ng isang opinion or meaning doon sa art. So, pero, hindi lang po sapat na mata lang ang ginagamit natin. Kasi kahit pare-parehas tayong tumitingin sa isang artwork, is magkakaiba pa rin tayo ng pananaw or opinion. And doon na po pumapasok ang awareness at ang subjectivity. When we say awareness, ito na po yung pagiging aware natin or mulat natin sa mundo, and also parang aware tayo sa sarili natin na tumitingin tayo sa art and para mas maging interested tayo. And the subjectivity po is yan naman yung personal opinion natin sa art. And doon naman pumapasok ang selective perception. When we say selective perception, is yan na po yung mga details na una nating napapansin o nakikita. Example is kapag tumingin ako sa isang artwork, ang makikita doon is mga bata, mga tao, and mga color. And kapag ang una kong napansin doon is yung mga tao, while ang iba naman, ang una nilang napansin doon is yung mga color. So doon po, yun na po ang selective perception, kung ano yung mga details na una nating napapansin or tumatatak sa ating utak. Sa pagtingin po natin ng art or sa pagbigay natin ng opinion sa art is nakakaapekto po yung ating mood, background, education, and our experiences. So, example, ako tumingin ako sa isang art, kung ang mood ko during that time is masaya, ang magiging opinion ko doon sa art is masaya kasi sumasabay po doon yung ating mood. And kapag naman sa background, kapag naman sa experiences, example, yung isang art is sad siya. So, kapag may experience ka na parang related doon sa art na yon, is parang makaka-relate ka talaga ng malala, and doon naman pumapasok yung experiences natin. In most cases, there are clues that mediate between the artwork and the viewer, allowing the viewer to more easily comprehend what he is seeing. Sa isang artwork daw is may makikita tayo dyan na mga clues na pwedeng makatulong sa atin na makapagbigay ng meaning. Yun po yung subject, content, and the form. Yung tatlo na yan is hindi yan siya pwedeng ipaghiwalayin kapag tumitingin tayo sa isang art. For example, nakakita ka ng art, tapos ang hinanap mo lang doon is the subject. Hindi mo na tinignan yung content and form ng artwork. Hindi mo yan siya maintindihan, or hindi ka makakapagbigay ng tamang meaning doon kasi pinaghiwalay mo sila. So, kailangan kapag tumitingin tayo sa art is yung tatlo na yun ang hanapin natin. Hindi yan sila pwede na paghiwalayin or may maiwan. Subject refers to the visual focus or the image that may be extracted from examining the artwork, while content is the meaning that is communicated by the artist or the artwork. Finally, the development and configuration of the artwork, how the elements and the medium or material are put together, is the form. So, in this chapter po, sa chapter namin, which is the chapter 4, ang i-discuss lang po namin dito ay ang subject and the content. While ang form naman is i-discuss yan sa chapter 6 at i-discuss ng mga group 6. So, para mas maintindihan natin ng maayos yung tatlong clues na yon, which is the subject, content, and form, ang subject po is yan na yung makikita natin, or details, visual details na makikita natin sa isang artwork. And the content is yan yung background or dahilan ng artist kung bakit niya ginawa ang artwork na yon, or sa madaling salita, yan na yung kahulugan or meaning ng isang artwork. And the form naman is yan yung kung paano ginawa ang isang artwork at kung paano ba ginamit yung mga elements like color, shape, lines, texture, and etc. So, sa madaling salita, ang subject is nakikita yan siya or consider siya. Para mas madaling maintindihan, ang subject is what, kumbaga ano yung makikita doon sa isang artwork. And the content is the why, bakit ginawa ng artist ang artwork na yon. And the form is the how, paano ginawa, paano ginamit yung mga elements, para mas madali nating maintindihan. In the field of the sciences, experimentation is the key to proving a hypothesis or a larger theory. In the arts, there are also observable qualities that the artwork holds that will point to its subject and sometimes even to its content. Sa field ng sciences daw, is kapag may idea sila, ginagawa nila ang experimentation para ma-prove nila na tama talaga yung idea nila o yung mga theory na theory. And also, hindi lang nila to siya ginagawa once, kundi ginagawa nila ng ilang beses para masigurado talaga na tama talaga yung idea nila o yung mga theory na theory. And also, hindi lang nila to siya ginagawa once, kundi ginagawa nila ng ilang beses para masigurado talaga na tama yung result at magiging maayos yon. Sa process, sa experimentation daw, in the process is may sinusunod sila na process para maayos yung experimentation nila. And after that, kailangan may makita daw sila na magandang result, which is ang tinatawag yun siya na empirical data, or yung mga nakikita natin na hawakan at na-observe natin. And sa field naman, or in terms of art naman, is may similarities din sila sa sciences. Kasi kapag kapag tumitingin tayo sa art, is may mga na-observe din tayo doon na pwedeng makatulong sa atin na malaman ang subject and content ng art. And also, it's very important po sa pagtingin ng art, it's very important na ang una nating tignan ay ang mga visual details or literal details na makikita natin doon, like kung tao ba, mga hayop, or mga color lang, or mga hugis lang yung makikita doon. And also, importante din na mapansinin natin, pagbigyan pansin natin kung paano siya gi-represent kung paano ni-represent ng artist yung isang artwork. Kung abstract ba siya, realism ba siya, malinaw, or malabo. Kasi kapag pinagsama nating tignan ang dalawang yon, is mas madali nating maintindihan kung ano ba talaga ang subject and content ng isang artwork. One of the most iconic and recognizable paintings all over the world is the Mona Lisa, done by Leonardo da Vinci. Meaning to say, ang Mona Lisa po, isa sa pinakasikat na mga na painting sa buong mundo is the Mona Lisa na ginawa ni Leonardo da Vinci. So, dahil sa kasikatan ng Mona Lisa, maraming mga tao or maraming tanong tungkol sa artwork na yon. Kung sino nga ba talaga si Mona Lisa, kung bakit siya pinaint ni Leonardo. And maraming mga scholars and experts na nag-effort na mag-research or alamin kung sino nga ba talaga si Mona Lisa. And although magkakaiba sila ng theory or mga nakuhang information, is nagkaisa sila sa isang information or idea. Si Mona Lisa daw ay nakabase sa totoong tao. Like, hindi siya imagine lang or gawa-gawa ni Leonardo, kundi nakabase talaga siya sa isang tao, sa totoong tao. And totoong tao po si Mona Lisa. Portraits such as the Mona Lisa are good examples of what is called representational art. These types of art have subjects that refer to objects or events occurring in the real world. Despite not knowing who Mona Lisa is, it is clear that the painting is of a woman that is realistically proportioned. Ang portrait po or mga artwork na like Mona Lisa is yan yung mga good example or the best example ng representational art. When we say representational art, is yan yung mga artwork na may mga subject na nakabase sa totoong mundo. Kung makikita ninyo ang Mona Lisa, makikita nyo doon na ang nakalagay doon sa portrait is isang babae na nakabase sa totoong tao. Ang Mona Lisa po is makonsider din siya na figurative art kasi ang figurative art is yan yung mga artwork na clear at mabilis at madali nating makita. Like, yung mga hugis ng mga tao, like clear na sa atin na tao siya. Like, hindi sila mga guhit-guhit lang or mga lines. So, like, hindi na natin kailangan ng deep thinking or pag-unawa kung ano ba talaga yung nasa paintings. Kasi, malinaw na makikita natin doon na isang babae ang makikita doon. So, ang Mona Lisa is makikita natin na may isang babae, may katawan ng babae doon, ang upper torso lang ang makikita, at may ngiti sa labi. So, parang, may imagine natin doon sa portrait na yun na habang ginagawa yun ni Leonardo is yung babae na yun is nasa window. So parang during the ginagawa yun ni Leonardo, mai-imagine natin na in order for him to paint the girl parang ang ginagawa niya is gumuguhit siya. After that, tumitingin naman siya doon sa babae na nakaupo para mas makuha niya ng maayos yung painting. On the other hand, seeing a painting that has nothing in it but continuous drip of paint or splotches of the work of Jackson Pollock, who is known for his action painting, are using large-scale canvases that were usually lined out on the floor or resting on a wall. He used other implements such as hardened brushes, knives, sticks, and trowels to add details. May mga artwork daw na makikita na may mga artwork daw na pag nakita natin is wala tayong makikita ng mga clear image like mga tao, hayop, bagay. Instead, ang makikita natin doon is mga pintura lang na parang pinatalsik lang, mga guhit-guhit lang. Walang mga subject na totoong tao. And kadalasan sa mga ganong mga ganong artwork is naiisip ng mga tao na napakadaling gawin lang or parang simplehan lang yung paggawa. Kaya kadalasan minamaliit nila yung mga ganong artwork kasi iniisip nila na kahit sino naman kayang makagawa nun basta may mga materials ka lang. Kasi parang kung titignan mo naman kasi yung artwork na yun is parang pinatalsik lang or binuhos lang yung mga pintura. And si Jackson Pollock daw is isa siyang painter na kilala as action painting. Meaning to say, kapag nagpipaint daw si Jackson Pollock is hindi lang siya naka-steady na nakaupo or nakatayo na ginagamit lang or pinapagalaw lang is yung kamay niya. Kasi 'di ba karamihan ng mga artist na makikita natin is ganon, nakaupo lang sila tapos ang pinapagalaw lang nila is yung kamay nila. Pero si Jackson Pollock daw is hindi siya ganon. Ang ginagawa niya is gumagamit siya ng malalaking canvas na dinidikit niya sa wall or sa sahig. Tapos ang ginagawa niya is binubuhos niya doon yung mga pintura. And hindi lang kamay yung gumagalaw sa kanya, kundi buong katawan. And kapag ganon siya, parang pinapatalsik lang niya yung mga pintura. Pero hindi dapat natin yung minamaliit kasi kadalasan sa mga ganyang artwork is sila pa yung may mas malalim na meaning. Ginagawa daw nila yun para makapag-convey sila ng emotion and feelings and ideas nila. And si Jackson Pollock daw is although ganun yung ginagawa niya, ibinubuhos lang niya or nagpapatalsik lang siya ng mga pintura, is gumagamit pa rin siya ng mga sticks, mga matitigas na brushes and knives. So kung mapapansin natin, hindi siya like ordinary na mga materials lang, kundi mga matitigas na brush and mga kutsilyo. Unlike sa ibang artist na mga soft brushes lang ginagamit nila. So Jackson Pollock is kakaiba talaga siya. Kaya din siya tinawag na action painting is dahil doon. So yung mga paintings ni Jackson Pollock is hindi siya literal na, hindi mga subject niya is hindi literal na mga tao o mga hayop, kundi ang makikita lang natin doon is mga guhit, mga lines and colors lang. And dahil doon, ang mga artworks niya is considered or belong siya sa non-representational art, also called non-figurative art. Kasi 'di ba, gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, ang representational art is ang subject doon is naka-base sa totoong mundo. And non-representational art is hindi, kumbaga mga nasa imagination lang, walang clear subject na makikita doon. And ganun din ang non-figurative art. Ang non-figurative art is yan yung mga artwork na hindi malinaw yung subject na makikita doon. Non-representational art does not make a reference to the real world. It is stripped down to visual elements such as shapes, lines, and colors that are employed to translate a particular feeling, emotion, and even concept. So, ang mga non-representational art daw is a kind of art na hindi nakabase sa totoong mundo. Wala itong pinapakitang mga image ng tao, hayop, lugar, bagay, or mga specific event or pangyayari. Instead, mag-paint sila ng mga image na ganon or clear image. Ang pinipaint lang nila is mga colors, shape, lines, and etc. na pwedeng nagko-convey or nagpapahiwatig ng meanings and ng feelings, emotions, and ideas. Dahil nga mas hindi clear ang non-representational art, maraming mga tao na mas nagugustuhan ang representational art dahil kapag nakakita sila ng representational art, mas madali nila itong maintindihan. So, mas nagugustuhan or mas na-appreciate ng mga tao yung mga ganong klaseng artwork. Kasi, kapag nakakita sila ng representational art, syempre may mga clear image na makikita doon and doon sila familiar. Kaya, mas madali silang nakakapagbigay ng opinion at mas madali nilang naiintindihan. And also, sometimes, mas confident din sila na mag-share ng insights nila or opinion nila doon sa artwork na yun kapag representational yun. And dahil nga mas appreciated ng mga tao ang representational art, maraming artists na napipilitan na gumawa ng representational art. Pero hindi lang din dahil sa personal opinion ng mga tao kung bakit sila nag-shape sa representational art, kundi kino-consider din nila yung panahon, like kung ano ba ang uso ngayon, kung ano ba ang uso sa panahon na yon, yung paniniwala nila, culture, yung culture ng painter. So, nag-shift sila from non-representational art to representational artwork, hindi lang dahil sa personal opinion ng mga tao, kundi kino-consider nila yung panahon. So, dahil nga, pero hindi dapat natin minamaliit ang mga non-representational art dahil ang representational at non-representational art is pare-parehong artwork na nagbibigay sa atin ng magandang meaning or nagbibigay sa atin ng mga ideas. So, parehas lang sila ng mga artwork and dapat na i-appreciate natin sila. An abstract work of Pablo Picasso is a great example to illustrate this. Cut metal that is hanging on a metal base, there is a palpable distortion of the image, whatever it is seems to be melting. Mere seconds of looking at the combination of lines, shapes, and colors of the sculpture will point to a head of a woman. So, one of the reason bakit maraming nalilito ang mga tao ay dahil ang akala nila ang non-representational art at abstract art ay parehas lang, which is hindi po sila parehas. Ang non-representational art at representational art is hindi malaki ang differences nila. So, may mga artwork na kumbaga nasa gitna lang sila. And one of the example is yung mga painting ni Pablo Picasso. May isa siyang painting na yung isang metal is may isang metal na pinutol and dinikit niya doon sa isang metal base. Doon sa metal na yon na pinutol niya is may makikita doon ng image ng isang babae. So, kung makikita ang paintings, parang mako-confuse talaga yung mga tao kasi may makikita doon na ulo ng isang babae. Pero may mga part din doon, details doon ng mga color, shapes, and lines. Pero, dahil nga kapag tinignan natin is mapapansin talaga natin yung ulo ng isang babae doon is consider pa rin yung work niya as representational art kasi nakikita natin doon yung image ng babae which is nakabase sa reality. So, ang tandaan lang natin na when we say non-representational art is ito yung mga artwork na hindi siya nakabase sa totoong mundo, like imagination lang. And representational art naman is nakabase siya sa reality. May makikita tayo na mga image like tao, hayop, bagay, and etc. While ang abstract art naman is nasa gitna lang yan siya. May makikita sa isang artwork ng abstract is may makikita doon na image ng tao and may makikita rin doon ng mga guhit, mga lines, and colors. A proponent of non-representational art was Russian artist Vasily Kandinsky. He asserted that with sounds, musicians are able to evoke imaginary in their listener or audience. Si Vasily Kandinsky is a Russian artist na isa sa mga sumusuporta sa non-representational art. Ang first na mga artwork niya ay paintings ang first na mga artwork niya and nirelate niya ang non-representational art sa music. According to him, ang mga music daw is, although hindi natin nakikita, naririnig lang natin siya, is may kakayahan yon na makapagbigay sa atin ng imaginary, like makapagbigay sa atin ng imaginary image, feelings, and emotion. So, may mga music daw na kapag kahit pinapakinggan lang natin is mararamdaman natin doon yung saya at yung lungkot. So, ganun din po ang ginawa niya sa kanyang mga paintings. Instead na mag-paint siya ng mga clear images or clear subject, ang ginawa niya, gumamit siya ng object-free painting, which mean Ang ginamit lang niya, ang ginuguhit lang niya is mga lines, colors, and shape. And doon sa mga lines and color and shapes na yon is ginawa niya yon is in a way na makapagbigay siya ng ibig sabihin ng paintings niya.
Good morning to each and everyone. My name is Jerome Adriano and today we are going to talk about the sources and kinds of subject. So ano nga ba ito? The passage talks about where artists get their ideas or subjects for their artworks. It says that when artists feel stuck, they often look back at what they already know and have experienced from these experiences. They can find many ideas for their art, and there are two main kinds of art mentioned. Number one is representational art. Representational art is art that shows real, recognizable things like people, animals, or landscapes. It's easier to understand because you can see what inspired it. Meaning to say, it is the art that is clearly identifiable as something which already exists in life. Kumbaga, nag-exist na ito bago pa tayo nabuhay. Fictional art naman is art that doesn't show clear objects. To understand it, you need deeper perception and insight because it expresses emotions, feelings, or ideas instead of realistic images. And it does not represent or depict a being, place, or thing. Instead, we enjoy random splashes of color, geometric shapes, and swirls of textures. So, ang difference po ng representational art and non-representational art is ang representational art is gumagamit po sila ng mga realistic figurative like people, place, and things. And sa non-representational art naman is hindi po sila gumagamit ng like things. Ang ginagawa nila po is ini-express po nila yung emotion nila through splashing of colors, lines, and shapes po para ma-express po yung mga thoughts and feelings and emotions nila. A very important sources of inspiration is from nature. From childhood, humans interact with the physical world using their senses, learning about their bodies and experiencing their surroundings. These experiences strongly influence artists, and throughout history, artists have shown nature in many ways: plants, animals, water, land, and even seasons. This artwork may represent reality or be shaped by the artist's imaginations. The passage mentioned Vincent van Gogh as an example. He believed that art and nature cannot be separated because he found happiness and comfort in painting nature, especially landscapes. He even wrote that without love for nature and his work, he would be unhappy. Vincent van Gogh died beneath Bonnevors. What you're seeing is a wet field, trees, and sky. It's clearly a real place, but painted in a very emotional, expressive way. What it means is Van Gogh believed that nature and human emotion are inseparable, and the swirling lines and heavy brushstroke shows how land felt to him, not just how it looked. And also, it shows nature as a source of inspiration. The image by Jan van Kessel, the elder, shows insects and plants painted in a great detail. This artwork represents nature as a source of inspiration, and the artist carefully studied small details of the natural world, showing how art can be used to observe, document, and appreciate nature. What it means is this represents nature studied closely, and the artist breaks nature into small parts to understand and appreciate the natural world. And it shows curiosity, observation, and respect for the natural world because some artists focus on tiny details in nature, not big scenes. So that's all. Let's proceed to the sculpture Discobolus by Myron. This picture represents the human figure and it shows an athlete in motion and reflects the Greek ideal of physical perfection, balance, and harmony. And this artwork demonstrates how artists use the human body to express strength, beauty, and human achievement. And what it means is the body is shown at its physical peak and it reflects admiration for athleticism and human potential. And ang mga Greek and Roman artists ay nakafocus lang sila sa human body like myths or mythology and yung mga human sculpture. So the image of Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel represent religion as a subject in art because the ceiling paintings depict biblical stories and were created to express faith and inspire worship. And it shows how religious belief strongly influence art, especially in Western civilization. So what it means is art inspired by religion and belief in God. God meant to teach stories from the Bible and inspire people. And it shows how art was used to express faith and spiritual because religion deeply influenced Western art and architecture. And also, this image represents God and spirituality as a subject of art. So let's proceed to the interior of Westminster. So what the picture shows the inside of a large Gothic church with high ceilings, arches, and stained glass windows. So what does it mean? So it means that this artwork represents religion influencing architecture and art. So the tall structure and light-filled space are designed to make people feel closer to God because it shows how art and architecture were used to strengthen faith. Because the main idea of this art is art was central to religious experience and especially sa mga Christianity. So it is important sa mga Christians na ma-feel nila na andyan lang yung God para sa kanila, and that was the reason why ganyan ang architecture design ng church. So the last picture is Shah Jahan receiving Dara Shikoh, and what the picture shows is a historical scene from India showing Emperor Shah Jahan with his son Dara Shikoh painted in the style of Indian miniature painting. So what it means is this artwork represents history and important events as subject of arts, and it records political power, royal life, and significant moments in history. And the detailed style adds meaning and importance to the events. So the main idea of this art is used to document and glorify historical events and leaders. So that's all for my topic. I hope you all understand. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and good day to each and everyone. My name is Jasmine K. Pasigan, and I will further discuss to you the discussion from our previous presenter. Now, I will be discussing to you the famous painting of Francisco de Goya, the El Tras de Mayo in 1814, or it is also known as the 3rd of May, and it is now housed in the Museo del Prado. But before we start, let us know first who is Francisco de Goya. So, Francisco de Goya was a famous Spanish painter and printmaker, widely considered as one of the most important artists in the Western art history. He lived during the time of war, political change, and social unrest in Spain, and these events strongly influenced his artworks. So now, let us discuss the famous painting of Francisco de Goya, the El Tras de Mayo in 1814. So this painting shows a tragic moment in Spanish history. That is because on May 2, 1808, 100 of Spaniards rebelled. And on May 3, 1808, these Spanish freedom fighters were massacred by French. So, ang case kasi dito is that before, ang Spain, France, and Portugal ay magkakaalyansang bansa. But later on, ang France at pati ang Portugal, they turned against Spain and they invaded Madrid. Because of that, pinakita sa painting na ito yung death of Madrileños or yung mga local insurgents during the Peninsular War. So, pinakita sa painting na ito yung pag-invade ng Napoleon's army sa Spanish civilian wherein they suffer and executed or shot by the firing squad. Now, let us have some trivia about the famous painting of Francisco de Goya, the El Tras de Mayo. So, as you can see in this painting, there's a man who stretches out his arms. This is a pose that resembles the Christ on the cross, and this represents innocence and martyrdom. Next, we can also see the soldiers or the firing squad. Now, Goya purposely did not paint the faces of these soldiers clearly or they come out as faceless partly because this represents mechanical forces or inhuman. Next, we can also see dead bodies lying on the ground. So ito na yung mga naunang na-execute na Spaniard civilians. There's also the other Spaniard civilians. They covered their eyes partly because they avoid watching the death they know awaits them. Did you know that artists often use history as their source in search of subjects in their artworks? That is because history contains important events many people recognize and shared across culture, tulad na lamang ng revolution, war, and colonization. From these events, ideologies like freedom, human rights, and liberty evolved. Yung mga artwork kasi na based on history ay nagsiserve as documentary or visual records. Kung kaya't, up until today, alam pa rin natin kung ano yung mga nangyayari before. Tumutulong ito para yung mga tao is ma-remember pa rin nila yung mga important leaders, gaya na lamang ni Andres Bonifacio, yung mga major events tulad ng colonization, wars, and revolution. And lastly, yung mga values na na-express through painting. So, in the history of art, it is important to remember that the source and kind of subject were not merely a product of artist's choice. Yung mga artists is may limitations din. Halimbawa na lamang, a particular kind of subject and style were influenced by, number 1, the art patron, or those who commissioned the artwork because they paid for it. So, kung ano yung gusto ni patron, yun yung susundin ni artist. Number 2, yung popular artistic style during that time. So, kung ano yung trending na art style noon, pwede yung maka-influensya so kung paano i-paint ni artist yung kanyang style sa artwork. Lastly, yung norms and trends during that time. So, artists had to follow what is acceptable to the society. So, this simply means that art reflects not only the artist's idea but also yung values, power structures, and traditions of their time. Kasi nga, there are artists that work under strict rules set by the church. So, if they disobey this, pwede silang mawalan ng mga magko-commission sa kanila. Or even worse, pwede silang mapunish. Now, to continue our discussion, during the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, most art was representational, meaning they clearly showed recognizable figures and scene. During that time kasi, art came as an aid for communication. Ginagamit ang art noon to spread Christianity kasi nga hindi lahat ng mga Pilipino noon is nakakaintindi ng Spanish. Yung mga paintings noon, sculptures tulad na lamang ng santo and other religious icons and figures were used para to represent yung Bible stories visually. And yung mga churches naman is naging main center ng art production during this time. Even though Spanish influence was strong, traditional Filipino art continued and slowly mixed with foreign styles brought by the Spain and other cultures. In 19th century naman, yung secular art or also known as the non-religious art became popular dito sa Pilipinas. So this change happened because of the increase in global trade, especially in the opening of the Suez Canal. Ang Suez Canal kasi, it is a man-made waterway for trade routes. Ginagamit ito noon para sa pakikipagkalakalan. Dahil sa Suez Canal, mas naging mabilis and napadali yung pakikipagkalakalan noon between different countries. Now, as the economy grew, patrons of art were no longer limited to clergy or sa mga pare. Kasi nga, middle class emerged and also yung mga wealthy ilustrado families. Now, itong mga families na ito began commissioning their portraits ng sarili nila or di kaya ng family nila to show their wealth, education, and pati na rin ang kanilang social status. So, yung mga artists, they paint these families wearing elegant clothing and jewelries to highlight their importance. So, ilan lamang sa mga halimbawa ng mga artist na ito ay sina Simon Flores, Justino Asuncion, and si Antonio Malantic. So dito, pinapakita na yung subject sa isang art or yung subject sa isang piece were largely influenced by the patrons or kung sino yung nagpa-commission sa isang artwork. Sila yung nagde-decide kung secular ba ang gagawin or non-secular. So now that we know what is subject in art, let us dig into what is content in art. So in the beginning of the discussion, my group mates discussed to you what is subject in art. So now, the difference between subject and content in art is that kapag sinabi nating subject is ito na yung una nating nakikita sa isang artwork tulad na lamang ng mga visible objects, people, or scenes, or kung ano, or kung saan nakuha ni artist yung inspiration niya sa kanyang artwork. Ang content in art naman is yung meaning behind the artwork. Kung bakit kinreate ang artwork, or ano ba yung message na gustong i-communicate ni artist. Mahalaga ang content in art kasi nga, understanding an artwork does not stop on what is visible. Para mas maintindihan natin ang isang artwork, dapat tayong mga viewers is tinatanong natin kung bakit kinreate ang artwork na ito. Ano yung message na gustong iparating ni artist? So, itong deeper understanding na ito ay tinatawag na content analysis or yung systematic at objective way para intindihin ang isang bagay at yung meaning na pinapahiwatig nito. Isa sa mga scholar na nag-explain kung paano i-analyze ang isang artwork ay ang art historian na si Erwin Panofsky. Sa kanyang book na Meanings in the Visual Art noong 1983, inintroduce niya ang method na tinatawag na iconology, or yung method of art analysis para malaman ang meaning behind the artwork through the interpretation of iconography, or yung mga symbols, objects, and themes within the artwork. Next is that, in understanding the content of art, it involves recognizing that there are various levels of meaning para mas maintindihan ang isang artwork. Una ay ang factual meaning. Ito na yung simplest level of meaning. This refers to what is identifiable and recognizable forms within the artwork, or kung ano yung una natin nakikita kaagad, like mga tao, objects, and actions, and kung paano ang mga ito ay related at connected sa isa't isa. Pangalawa naman ay ang conventional meaning. This pertains to the acknowledged interpretation of the artwork gamit ang motif, signs, and symbol as basis of its meaning. Ang mga meaning na ito ay learned and accepted over time, gaya na lamang ng white dove, di ba it often symbolizes peace? Now, ang mga meaning na ito ay nag-i-exist dahil ang society natin has repeatedly used and pati na rin yung mga viewers or yung audience and mga scholars ay tinatanggap ito. And lastly, number 3 ay subjective meaning. Ito na yung varieties of meaning that arise when a particular artwork is read. Nakadepende ito on what we know, what we learn, what we experience, and values that we stand for. That is because yung mga tao or yung viewers is nanggagaling sa iba't ibang lugar. Kaya naman, pwedeng iba't iba rin yung interpretation nila sa isang artwork. Halimbawa na lamang nito ay ang famous painting ni Michelangelo na The Creation of Adam. Ang painting kasi na ito ay can be read using various levels of meanings. So in this painting, makikita natin, number 1, si Adam and God kung saan nakastretch ang arms nila. They are reaching out to each other. And yung index fingers nila is almost touching. Number 2, God is shown as an older figure wearing a tunic or clothing. And floating surrounded by drapery and figures presumed to be angels and cherubs. Si Adam naman, on the other hand, ay walang saplot. He is resting on the ground and ang position niya ay diagonally parallel to that of God. So based sa analysis ng artwork na ito, Michelangelo clearly illustrates a scene from creation story or yung creation of man. Kaya iconic ang painting na ito dahil sa conventional meaning nito. Specifically, yung mirrored poses of God and Adam suggest that humans are created in the image and likeness of God. Ang idea na ito ay aligned sa values ng Renaissance, ang period kung saan ina-emphasize ang humanism. Ang humanism kasi ay isang art style during Renaissance period na kung saan it depicts human structures. Gaya na lamang ng mga classical canons or symbols na pinakita sa painting in the forms of the body like proportioned and muscular. Pinortray ito especially dahil si Michelangelo, bago siya naging painter, ay dati siyang sculptor. In-apply niya rin yung kanyang knowledge sa anatomy sa kanyang pagpipinta. Kaya naman, many scholars believe that ang kanyang painting show greater movement and energy than earlier artworks, meaning na-surpass ni Michelangelo yung mga earlier artworks ng Romans and Greeks. Another interesting interpretation about this artwork ay yung overlap between conventional and subjective meaning nito. Noong 1990 kasi, si Dr. Franklin Mashberger, isang gynecologist, ay nag-publish ng theory sa Journal of the American Medical Association kung he proposed na yung silhouette of God and yung shroud and drapery that trail behind him looks very similar to the human brain. According kay Dr. Franklin, ang artwork na ito can also be called the endowment of Adam dahil as God's creation, the most important qualities na binigay sa tao ay ang intellect or yung ability natin to think. Kasi nga, 'di ba, tayong mga tao or yung ability natin to think is what separates us from other creations. Dahil nga si Michelangelo ay nag-aral ng anatomy secretly through dissection, it is possible that he intentionally embedded this symbol. Para kay Dr. Franklin, ang kanyang medical background at ang kanyang exposure sa art and history is what makes him allow to catch this symbol hidden in Michelangelo's work.